Welcome to Say It, I Dare You, the podcast where we pull apart the personal meaning of taboo and hard to say words and phrases with wonderful guests and a little bit of gentle peer pressure. My name is Quinn, and today's word is butch. According to the dictionary, butch is defined as having an appearance or other qualities of a traditionally seen as masculine. In the 2S LGBTQ plus community, it has evolved into an identity, most commonly that of a lesbian or a queer woman, whether that's based on the assumptions of others or a personal identity, like today's guest. So today I am joined by my friend Tory, a computer science student and self-proclaimed butch lesbian themselves. Hi, Tory.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm really excited for this. Tory's pronouns are she, they, so in case you hear us switching between the two throughout this episode, that is why. Identifying as a butch was not something that came quickly to Tory, so I'm hoping that this episode becomes a chance for some folks to hear about queer identities and the journey that brings them to fruition, while also picking apart the word in all of its glory, all of its history, and making it a little bit easier to talk about, especially for those who still feel uncomfortable and steer away from it. So, without further ado, Tory, let's get started with why you relate to today's episode topic.
I mean, look at me. I'm always partial to a pair of slacks, always partial to an undercut, shorter hair. I don't know. I just I think it's always been like this for me. I was young, and you go to your first communion for people who are religious in the audience, or you go to, I don't know, like family functions, your mom's putting you up in a dress, and I'm like, I feel like I'll probably explode. Yeah. But you don't have the words for that when you're younger. So now we have butch.
Now you have butch. Yeah. And so why do you think this word is still uncomfortable for some people to talk about?
Well, I think it's because in the very traditional nuclear, like heteronormative lens, if you will, it's not right. Masculinity belongs to men. Femininity belongs to women. If you have tits, you should have lipstick on. If you've got like a dick, you should like football. Like it's not that I like football, but it's just, you should like subscribe to something. So anything, obviously it's like anything deviant, if anything goes away from the normal course, people probably will be uncomfortable with it. Mm-hmm.
So what is your personal identity with the word butch, or I guess your personal definition of the word?
That's a really great question, because you'd think it'd be so straightforward. Well, first of all, it's
nothing straight here.
There it is. That's why I'm here. No, it's an extremely individual thing. So for me, it informs more than just how I dress or even who I date. It's I've seen it online said that it's a sexuality, a gender identity, and as well as a political position. Oh. It informs pretty much how I go about my life, the people I interact with, how I interact with them. But of course, a lot of it really is how I treat the person that I'm in love with. Yeah. So yes.
Interesting. So can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean about a political identity?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the moment you are identifying as a marginalized community, you do have to vote in that way. You know what I mean? Like I'll see queer people who are like very far like on the right end of the spectrum, and I'm like, it doesn't necessarily make sense to me. Like you have to be putting forth your like political opinion in a way that will benefit not only yourself but your community as well. So to be up there advocating for shit that's actively tearing the LGBT community down, Caitlyn Jenner, it's just, it doesn't make sense to me, and it feels like a disservice to even the label that you've chosen to put onto yourself.
So was there a time in your life when the term butch was something uncomfortable for you that you didn't sit comfortably with?
Absolutely. I, especially when I was really young, like in grade school, elementary school, where 4 things and 2 of them are your parents. Like when you see how the older people in your life react to like masked lesbians. Like my dad has a very big problem with Rosie O'Donnell, like, and people who like look like, like kind of like fatter women with shorter hair, you kind of like internalize that as maybe not intentionally, but it happens. So yeah, it took me a long time. I always see videos about like make your younger self proud, and like my younger self would like hate me. Like she was like do not cut your hair below like a certain length. And it was just like, well, girl, we're happy, so get into it.
So when in getting into it, what was that journey like for you, I guess, from the time you kind of heard the word butch, tried to understand it, to where you are now?
Oh my gosh.
Big question. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Let's start baby steps. Being someone who's like younger coming in, like, and I've had my butch identity for a very long time. A lot of my journey was really informed online with social media. You don't really see a lot of stuff day to day at the grocery store, but you remember 2014 Tumblr and the dumpster fire that it was. But as bad as it was, there was a lot of like every single possible flag for the LGBT community you could find was on there, and you were finding it out. And that is when I really started learning about the history of the term butch, femme, and all these different kind of things. So I just kind of like slowly lowered myself into that like online community. And then I found, you find whatever resonates with you. So I started coming out of it being like, I always knew I was a huge romantic, and butch is an identity that really is steeped in like romantic actions and like ways of presenting. So it was just kind of something that made sense. I don't like a dress, and I am a lover boy at heart. So
I love that.
Where does that come out? It comes out in a butch identity, baby.
I love that. I feel like a big part of this platform in terms of destigmatization comes with education, in my personal opinion. And I am, even as a queer woman, not super privy to the history of the word butch. And obviously I had the wherewithal to know that it's more than just a outward facing identity, but it is a personality. And even, as you said, the way in which steers your actions as a partner, as a person. Can you tell us a little bit more about your knowledge of the history of the term butch?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's only so much that I can say as someone who's like 22 years old. I think a really great place to start is it's a book called Stone Butch Blues by Leslie Feinberg. It's about their experience, or the butch experience in the 1970s, and kind of like at the height of, or at least in the midst of, police brutality, and like the only space that butch lesbians could really occupy was like in the factories and stuff. So that's a really good place to get the history. But there is more to it, I believe, that resonates with me personally. Obviously the police aren't here battering down pride every year, right? Like we have a much different experience now. So for me, my personal view of butch is it extremely dictates my interactions with others. I am as much as I can be with the $4 whole I have in my bank account. It's an identity that is really rooted in protection. There's a reason that the L comes first in the acronym, and I would encourage everybody to look up why. That is one of the reasons that protection is so strong in the butch identity. You hear about rent a butch, like we'll come fix your like pipes, and like we'll do woodworking. Like
I love that.
Yeah, there's a reason that there are so many qualities associated with butch that are acts of service, like plumbing or carpentry or roofing. And this is just for me, obviously, like but like it definitely is something that like is in your soul. It's definitely not an external thing. There's a and that's where I think mask comes in, right? So if you're not necessarily you don't resonate with all of the, I don't know, wholeness of butch, mask is a perfect way of describing yourself. It's just someone who presents more masculinely, whereas butch is something definitely it's how I treat my woman. It's how I treat the women in my life. Yeah. I do try to take on, if you could take all the beautiful parts of masculinity and disregard all the rest, that's what I try to do.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. I'm definitely fully, as a joke, but privy to, as the DIY queen in my household, like I installed my TV wall mount and I was like, am I a butch?
Are we butch?
Are we butch today? Sometimes I'm just like, I think I'm being super butchy, and I'm like, all I've done is sand my coffee table. But it is part of that feeling. And for context on what you mentioned about the L at the beginning of the acronym, for LGBTQ plus, L, obviously it stands for lesbian, and it is at the beginning of the acronym because the history of the queer community was a lot of lesbians being at the forefront of activism. for the queer community. And so, like you said, please do a little bit more reading into it if you're curious. But that is the reason why. Another book I really loved that kind of it's less about education of the history of the Butch experience and more just like a fictional story to help understand the feeling of the Butch experience was Last Night at the Telegraph Club. Have you ever read it?
No, I haven't.
It's incredible. It very similar setting, police brutality for queer spaces, clubs getting raided, that sort of deal. However, it's a crier through and through.
Yeah.
If you have any empathy for queer folks, you're done for. But it's a great resource to empathize with that word and that community of people from the outside in. Do you have a reason for why like Butch resonates with you more than mask? Why did that become that for you?
Well, again, like I think I said earlier, mask it's definitely more of a tool. Whereas like I feel like Butch is the toolbox itself, or it's the job that the toolbox needs to be used for. I resonate with Butch really because I am I want to provide for people in my life, and it's something that goes much deeper than just a personality trait for me. I just feel as though like if I am not opening doors, if I am not filling up water bottles, if I'm not paying service to the women in my life, I'm doing them almost a disservice. I have to flirt with self-care there, and
yes,
for sure. But thankfully I found a beautiful woman who is not going to take advantage of that. But it's something that is so with me the moment I wake up and the moment I go to bed. It goes farther than the clothes that I wear. So that to me is what really makes Butch my identity. I am a Butch lesbian. Like I am those two words simultaneously. I just feel like I need to protect everyone that I love. That's how I show and I express my love and admiration. So that is Butch is centered around that, of course, and that's my personal everything. This
is like news to me in the sense of I knew who you were as a warm person, and I knew you identified as Butch, but putting those two things together as part of one identity, I definitely had a predisposed notion of Butch just being more so an identity and a way of presenting yourself. So I feel like I'm learning a lot about it being more of a personality trait, I guess.
Yeah,
so to speak.
A way of seeing the world.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And so, I mean, in my experience as someone who presents a little bit more femme, I have had the joy of being presented with you don't look like a lesbian. And I'm like, look at my nails. Just kidding. But I was wondering if you've ever had your queerness or your gender identity even questioned because of how you present yourself outwardly.
No, never questioned. Good. I've come out and no one's ever been surprised. Like, come on, girl, you shaved your head like in 7th grade. Like, I think we been new. Yeah. Very much that. No, definitely never been questioned. Any difficulties I have probably with people just seeing how I am is probably more centered in hate. Yeah, so
womp womp.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, like it's and I do believe I've been very lucky, and again it's as good as it's ever been for queer people being out and about in public. But you get the occasional dyke tossed at you, or you're walking down the street and like people are like, oh yeah, like they were like, you just hear them passing like, I don't think gay people should have rights. Like that's literally happened to me like just the other week and stuff. And I'm like, oh, maybe
were you talking to me?
Perfectly safe here. Like, okay, but like I've got my keys and I will shank a bitch. Like, yeah. Again, I will protect the woman that I'm with. Like, I will seriously. Go down. I'll get one punch in. You can beat my ass, but I got that one punch in. That's fine.
Just for the proof of it. I was talking with some friends who had gone out, these two couples, both lesbian couples, and both who have like a more mask leaning and a more femme leaning partner. And it's become this running joke and this ask because I guess they were out and somebody on the streets of Toronto was yelling at them, and it without anyone speaking, the two femmes went up to the front and the two masks stayed in the back and toughened up and we're like, we got this. Yeah. And then now we're having this running joke with all of our couple friends like, okay, who would be X and who would be Y in that situation?
Right.
And it's especially funny in situations like mine where I'm in like a like both myself and my partner are quite femme presenting. So it's really just about like who can handle confrontation more at the end of the day.
Yeah, who's not going to cry immediately.
And here's the thing. I say this with so much love. You're an emotional person. I feel like you would punch and then you would cry.
And I would. Yes. But I would be there in the moment. You know, I'm there.
Yeah. You'd be so proud of yourself.
Yeah, I'd be trying.
Yeah. So something I wanted to talk about with you, this is more just for the shits and giggles, in that there is this conversation in the lesbian community specifically of like this lesbian spectrum of personality and or like presentation fully based on stereotypes. I will preface that this is like opinion only, just for shits and giggles.
Not woke zone.
Not woke zone. It goes from like this air of there's like femme / like sometimes it's like a lipstick lesbian all the way to the other side of the spectrum to like butch and mask. But then we have so many things in between. There's chapstick, there's granola, there's what else is there?
You know, we mentioned like a golden retriever mask, like black cat femme.
Yes.
Like, you know, there's like, it goes all the way, but people were using futch for a while, but I think that's more just like stem and like chapstick now. They all kind of blended into one.
Yeah. And even the term stud, I think people are moving away from that, just in that it really belongs to the Black community.
Yes.
But it is another one of those terms that fits in those spectrums.
Yeah.
And it just becomes so, honestly, sometimes it's disheartening because you're like, why are we segregating ourselves more?
Literally, like we are other to everybody else, and now we're other to each other.
Like, yeah, the intersectionality in the queer community could use some work just in general.
Yeah, bell hooks, come on over, girl. Like, we can use your help.
Yeah. However, it can be a fun conversation to have, especially among friends. Like I was telling Tory earlier about how I have 2 friends who are similar in nature, but when you look at them, when you know them well, you wouldn't put them in the same category, but there's no other category for them. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, they're both chapsticks. And then we just got way too deep and I was like, oh, one is like chapstick brand, like, or what's that one? Like brand for like hand creams, like Working Hands, like whatever carpenters use for chapstick is her. And then there's like EOS bubblegum flavor is the other one. Yes. But they're both still chapstick. And so I feel like we should make our new language for it.
Well, and that's so funny because like lesbians, we have like those 6 or 7 terms, but like gay men, like lingo, like they've got hierarchies, bear, otter, like twunk, like twink, like they've got so many. Like I think that's probably a different episode, but like why do we only have 4 and they have 1,600?
Yes. You know? But and I mean, we could get into the meaning of all of these. Again, they're a lot of the times based on stereotypes, and it feels like a blessing and a curse. A curse in that like I said, the intersectionality of the queer community could use some work. I think segregating ourselves can do more harm than good some days. But in other ways, much like Butch is for you, it's another piece of acceptance. It's another piece of identity. I don't personally feel like I know what I am in that spectrum. I know I'm a lesbian, not confused about that one. However, I'm like, sometimes I say I'm gay, sometimes I say I'm queer. Those are sexual identities. But sometimes I'm like, I'm a chapstick. Other times I'm a femme. Sometimes I wear lipstick. Does that make me a lipstick lesbian? No.
Maybe not.
Maybe that day.
Yeah.
Everything's fluid.
It's a day by day thing.
Yeah.
Like just like everything else in this community.
Yeah, seriously. Literally everything is fluid.
Yep.
However, for people with experiences like yours, that definition can really help you figure out who you are.
Absolutely. No, like it was something that you it's not something that everybody, it's not a requirement, right? You don't need to have I am an like lesbian leaning, like you don't have to have like 60 terms. You can just be queer. Like it's fine. There's no price of admission, but it's exactly like you said, like can help you like just feel a little bit better about yourself. That's definitely what it was for me. I felt like I was a little bit in limbo before. I didn't really know, you know, like where I fit into, not even like the queer community, into my life. Like I didn't know how I was like supposed to be doing things, and Butch was kind of like a perfect kind of framework for me. So it definitely helps your own like journey to like self-acceptance.
Yeah. I feel like it can really be stripped back for people who don't have any sort of queer experience and who are listening. emotion wise and just like uncertainty wise, it can feel similarly to like when you're in between jobs and you're like, as much as I'm the first to vouch for like your job should not be your personality, it does have a big thing to do with how you live and why you live. And if you feel unsure about your career path and you don't know what you like and what you're going to do for the rest of your life, it is an uncomfortable place to be in.
Yeah, it sucks.
And obviously there's nuances and differences, but I would equate that to the queer experience of not quite knowing and not settling in who you are. Like a lot of folks who choose the term queer to identify, no matter who they're with, I speak to them and they really have had some struggles with like, what is queer? Do I have to say lesbian? Do I have to denote the gender of the person or the sex of the person that I am having sex with? No girl. But it takes a while to get confident with saying, no, I don't have to do that.
No, yeah. It's like it starts at school, you know, like you are a first grader, and then it goes like into like university, you are like a math major, we put like you have to be something to be valid in that experience, you know, like we don't have to port that over. Not everything has to come over into the community. Like it's okay to be fine just being queer. Like I don't think everybody listening to this probably knows that or is
learning.
Glad you're learning that one because that's literally the basis.
Yeah. Step one.
Yeah, step one. You're good, girl. Or you know, I say girl. I'm like it's gender neutral at this point. Everybody's a girl. Like I've called 6'4" like straight men. I'm like, bye, girl. And like,
oh, I love watching them quake in their little boots. Yeah. But I mean, we use the term like, hey guys. That is a whole other conversation because I know a lot of places that are trying to get rid of that terminology. And I'm like, yes, guys is gendered and people who feel uncomfortable with that term have every right to. Right. I do not want to take away somebody's right to say, well, that doesn't sit right with me that you're calling me guys. And at the same point, I'm like, why can't we just take the gender out of the word guys? It's a hot take because it really depends on who you're talking to. And if somebody says they don't like it, don't call them that. Literally, that's simple.
Literally that. Like someone will speak up. And also the fish, there are bigger fish to fry.
So many bigger fish.
Lots of people can't piss in public. You know, like we've got things to worry about. The States is a mess. Like I think I'm going to call people guys. And if you don't like that, you just tell me. But
and I will respect it.
And I will respect that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So settling into this identity, I guess we sort of touched on this topic already, but the sureness of this identity, was it really important to you? Did it help with your self-acceptance to the point where you're here now?
Yeah, there's a definite improvement in confidence once I started really identifying with the Butch label, which is difficult for a lot of like people. Like it's tough, like finally parting ways almost, or not parting ways, but like really putting that distance between yourself and femininity. Like I think a lot of people struggle with that. I think it's a lot of reasons why people struggle with saying they're lesbian, you know, like having to take a stance, you know, and like being a full on one side of the spectrum is a little bit overwhelming. Not to say that there's a nuance to, you know, the lesbian and gay and bisexual identities, but to really put your foot down and say like, yes, this is how I'm going through. It can be overwhelming, but for me, it was like, oh, thank God, like somebody's telling me what to do. Yeah. Like it was just like once I was able to find that like, okay, like, yes, this is for me, it was so freeing. Like I believe my partner talked about it, how she when we first got together, we were both kind of like, I don't know who I am. Yeah. Or at least I was very, I don't know who I am, and she was like, I'm trying to get laid. And like it was like very that. But like it came, I've been very fortunate in the way that I've been able to really blossom into my Butch identity with a very strong and powerful woman by my side. Yeah. So
Tory's partner, for the record, for anyone who maybe didn't listen to the previous episode, is Emily. She was on the Girly Girl episode.
Go listen to it.
Yes, you have to. Yes. But I was really excited to do these back to back because you kind of both shared a similar experience of sitting in androgyny until you had someone who supported you. And then it's like, oh, whoa, there is a whole version of me who was hiding behind trying to be malleable for whoever might want to fuck me.
Exactly. Yeah. We're all just trying to get laid at the end of the day. But like, yeah, it's been amazing for my like self-assurance and like, okay, like it's okay. Not only like, do I want to be Butch? Like it's okay. And like, it's hot. It's hot to be Butch.
Yeah. Like, it's funny. We were talking about like after Tory's partner's episode, and her partner Emily was just like, everybody loves a butch, and we were like, honey, that's your preference. Like, I agree with you, and not everybody, but also like I love the amount of love that the two of you share in also supporting each other's identity. Her being a girly girl, you being a butch. You're also facing a lot of heteronormativity in just your like gender roles, quote unquote, in your relationship.
No, and but like I think where we really mark the difference is I like to do it, you know, like there have been numerous times where we've left a building and it's raining and I'm like, stay here, I'm gonna go get the car. And she's like, thank God I don't have to go out in the rain. I'm like, I get to be a little I get to be like a big man, like, you know what I mean? But like, whereas I feel like when it's like obligated, there's maybe these types of women who are like, this is embarrassing, this is an ick, please don't go get the car, it's fine. Or like there's men who are like, I don't want to get my clothes wet, you know, like it's like when it's pushed on you, I think that's when it's the issue. But like it is so weird that like heteronormativity like just works for us. Like,
yeah, you're like, actually I'm fine with this.
Actually this is great for us personally, but not in the way that you're doing it, in the way that we're doing it. It's better.
Yes. And it's the difference is you are deciding it for yourselves,
yes,
instead of society deciding it for you. Yes. And there was probably a time, correct me if I'm wrong, where it was about society deciding it for you, and then you were like, wait, I can actually just like this.
And it
feel
feels better. And it feels better once you like are like, okay, no, this is something that I do actually want to do. And if it's not something you want to do, stop doing it.
Yeah. Also, if you're anywhere near like queer women TikTok, the amount of like content about like masks and butches are the sappiest motherfuckers when they get in the door. They're gonna hold the umbrella, they're gonna get the car, they're gonna pay for dinner, and they're gonna come home and be like, where are my cuddles? I don't know if that's you, but there tends to be thousands, if not millions, of people liking these videos and agreeing with the statement.
Yeah. No, the biggest pussies known to man, for sure.
Lover boys. It's different. You're not a pussy. Yeah. You're a gentle soul who has acts of service as one of your top giving love languages.
Yeah. Ranks extremely high. So yes, that is accurate.
Ditto.
Us and Drake. Apparently he said he wanted to be a lesbian. Come here, baby girl, we got you. Like you go fit in with us, big boy.
You already have the like little buzz in your hair, like you're halfway there, you know.
I mean, like
he's so gay.
We have to get into Drake right now, but he's a whole different fucking thing. Like he just needs to come out at this point.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for queer folks struggling to accept these masculine traits or the term butch in and of itself?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I don't feel like I am in a position to like give this advice, but like obviously anybody who has lived experience in a sector can, you know, I try to like, I've got a friend in social work who's like, you are your own advocate and you are an advocate for others. And like, I'm like, okay, girl, but I'm young.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely do. I think it comes from a lot of like, it doesn't have to be all at once. You know, like I think people are like, okay, if I think butch is something for me, I have to shave my head right now. Yeah. I have to get 40 piercings and I have to gain 100 pounds of muscle. And like, no, that's not how it works. Like it's something, it's like anything in life. You grow into it slowly and you kind of figure out like what works for you. Like I know there's a lot of masks online who are, I think it's called like a baby girl or a girly girl mask. Like they're you know, dressed to the nines and like a trucker cap and, you know, a hoodie and, you know, khakis, but they are like slay, like oh my god, and like the only mask thing about them is the way that they dress, and they are so like
valid,
powerful in that, you know, and like there are nuances to this identity. It doesn't just have to be, you know, Rosie O'Donnell. You know, there are other ways to present as a butch lesbian. So just figure out what works for you. If it's something that you think could fit into your life or could like help inform you in the way that I did, then it's probably worth like getting yourself into that kind of like uncomfortable space. Because there was a time where I was like, okay, I'm going to cut my hair because I definitely do want to feel like more butch in my identity, but I have like very big cheeks and like maybe short hair wasn't the best look on me. So like while short hair was like really like almost like gender affirming or like affirming in my identity, it didn't necessarily work, you know, as I was looking in the mirror, right? Yeah. So like it's you can figure out how you want to go about it, and you definitely don't have to do it all at once.
Yeah. So. Queerness is fully your own. I think that's a big part of and I hope just an obvious disclaimer of this entire conversation is there are labels, there are titles, there are communities, there are pockets, there are all these things, and you can be all of them. You can be none of them.
Yep.
You can just be like, I don't have a name. I don't have a pronoun. I don't have a gender, nothing. I'm just who I am.
I move in the world and you will witness me. Like, yeah.
The point being,
yes,
queerness is what you want it to be. And everything we've said, from what a chapstick lesbian is to what a butch lesbian is, that doesn't mean it has to mean that for you. But it is nice to know that it's there. And I think on top of the advice that you shared, a big piece of advice that I think most queer people who feel sure of themselves will give is find a community. If you think or feel like you might align with an identity, start surrounding yourselves with other queer people who will help you, much like you said, like you and your partner have helped each other find your separate identities. Be around people who get it, who give you patience and space, and that in and of itself will help you be like, this fits with me, or oh, maybe I was a little off, maybe it's not femme, maybe it is lesbian, maybe it's not butch, maybe it is mask, if a label is what you're looking for.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like it's obviously, don't disregard what the entire word butch like usually means, but like, yeah, you can definitely find your own kind of like niche in that. Exactly. If you say like you feel like you could even might resonate with it, just talk to people, you know, like the only way you're going to get to know something is to talk to people who are currently in it. So,
or if you don't have those spaces, if you're in a place where that kind of doesn't exist, you can't meet those people, online forums are really great, but also your own education. We both gave book recommendations. You can start to look into what that experience is for other people through different lenses that aren't having these sometimes uncomfortable conversations. Yeah. Although it's no surprise here that I'm pushing the agenda of the uncomfortable conversations, because truly, once they're done, it's so much more comfortable. So much more comfortable.
Amen.
Amen. Amen, girl.
Hallelujah.
All the guys and girls.
Yeah.
Gays, everyone.
Gays, days.
Yeah. Everyone in between.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tori, for being here.
Quinn.
This was such a good conversation.
Oh, good.
I feel like I learned a lot about the butch identity that I didn't know before this, and I hope our listeners did too. Thank you, everyone, for listening and for being part of pushing the gay agenda. Just kidding, sort of. Thank you so much for being here. Please download the episode and leave a review. Those really, really help us get on the rankings. But you can also find us on TikTok or Instagram at Say It I Dare You Pod. If you happen to have a word that you want us to chat about, or you want to be a guest, or you know of a guest that would be really great for this, please feel free to reach out. We're always looking for new people to have conversations with and new topics to kind of destigmatize and pick apart. And other than that, thank you again, Tory, and we will see y'all next week. Bye.